What did the first human words sound like? It's one of the biggest questions we can ask. And the honest answer is nobody knows. We can't know for sure. The sounds are gone forever. They were just puffs of air that vanished the moment they were spoken hundreds of thousands of years ago. There are no recordings. There are no fossils of words. So, this is a story about a guess. It's a deep, educated guess pieced together from different fields. We look at old bones. We study how our bodies are built. We watch how apes communicate. We listen to how modern languages work. We even look at how babies learn to talk. We take all these clues and try to build a picture of something we can never truly see or hear. The first thing to get out of the way is that language didn't just appear one day. It wasn't like a switch was flipped and suddenly a caveman pointed at a fire and said, "Fire." It was a slow, messy process that probably took 1,000,000 years or more. It grew out of grunts and gestures and calls that our more ape-like ancestors used. Well, language is a biological system. It had to evolve, just like our legs and our brains. To make words, you need the right equipment. You need the hardware before you can run the software. Our closest living relatives, chimpanzees, can't speak like us. It's not because they aren't smart. They are very smart, but their bodies are not built for it. The main difference is in the throat. We have what's called a descended larynx. Your larynx is your voice box. In a chimp and in a human baby, the larynx sits high up in the throat. This is great for them. It lets them breathe and swallow at the same time without choking. It's a very safe design. But in early human childhood, around 3 months old, our larynx starts to move down. It drops lower in the throat. This is a terrible design change in some ways. It creates a shared path for food and air, which is why we can choke to death. It's a huge evolutionary risk. There has to be a very good reason for this change. And that reason seems to be speech. When the larynx drops, it creates a big open space behind the tongue, called the pharynx. Think of it like the body of a guitar or a violin. It's a resonating chamber. By changing the shape of this chamber with our tongue and lips, we can create a huge variety of distinct, clear sounds. A chimp can't do that. Their sound-making ability is much more limited. They can make hoots and grunts, but they can't make a clear E sound, an ah sound, and an oo sound. Those 3 vowels are the cornerstones of human speech. Having that range is everything. So, when did this happen? We look at the skulls of our ancestors. The bottom of the skull, the base of cranium, is shaped differently if you have a descended larynx. In modern humans, it's arched. In chimps and early hominins like Lucy, it was flat. By looking at skulls from species like Homo erectus and later, we see a gradual arching. This suggests the vocal tract was slowly changing, becoming more like ours. It wasn't a sudden event. It was a slow drift. There's also one special bone. It's called the hyoid bone. It's a small, U-shaped bone in your neck that supports the tongue. It's the only bone in the body not connected to any other bone. It just floats there, held in place by muscles. Because it's so important for tongue control, its shape can tell us something about a creature's vocal abilities. For a long time, we didn't have any fossil hyoid bones. They are small and fragile. But then, in the 1980s, a nearly complete Neanderthal skeleton was found in a cave in Israel. It was a man named Kabera II, and he had his hyoid bone. The shocking thing was, it looked just like a modern human hyoid bone. Exactly the same. This was a bombshell. It suggested that Neanderthals, who lived up until about 40,000 years ago, had the anatomy for speech. They likely had complex vocalizations. It didn't mean they had language like ours, with grammar and stories, but the basic machinery was there. The hardware was in place. Of course, the throat is only half the story. The other half is the brain. You need a brain that can control all those delicate muscles in the tongue, lips, and larynx. You also need a brain that can connect sounds to meanings. In modern human brains, 2 areas are crucial for language. There's Broca's area toward the front, which is involved in producing speech. And there's Wernicke's area toward the back, which is involved in understanding it. When we look at the skulls of our ancestors, we can't see the brain, but we can see the marks the brain left on the inside of the skull. These are called endocasts. When we look at the endocasts of hominins like Homo habilis, who lived around 2 million years ago, we see an expansion in the part of the brain where Broca's area would be. It's not proof they had language, but it's a clue. It tells us that something was changing in the brain in the right spot a very long time ago. Their brains were reorganizing in a way that would later support language. So we have a body that was slowly becoming language ready over a vast stretch of time. But why did it happen? What was the pressure that pushed us to speak? There are a few big ideas here. One is that it all started with gestures. Our ancestors were using their hands to communicate long before their mouths. Pointing at things, miming actions, this makes a lot of sense. Apes use gestures all the time, and it's something we still do. When you're in a foreign country and don't speak the language, you use your hands. The idea is that vocal sounds were slowly added on top of the gestures. A point might be paired with a grunt. Over time, the grunt became more specific, and the need for the point faded away. Another idea is that language replaced grooming. For most primates, social bonding is done through grooming. They sit for hours picking fleas and dirt from each other's fur. It's intimate. It builds trust and alliances, but grooming has a problem. You can only do it with one individual at a time. As human groups got bigger, this became a bottleneck. An early human might have a social circle of over 100 people. You can't spend your whole day grooming everyone. So according to the anthropologist Robin Dunbar, we evolved a new way to bond vocal grooming. We started to use sounds to service our social relationships. These sounds eventually became words, and the conversations became gossip. Gossip, in this view, isn't a trivial thing. It's the foundation of society. It's how we keep track of who is trustworthy, who is a cheat, who is a good mate. This language let us bond with multiple people at once, and it let us share information about people who weren't even there. So let's get to the sound itself. What did those first true words, the first sounds linked to a specific meaning, actually sound like? We can start by thinking about what sounds are the easiest to make. The sounds that require the least amount of fine motor control. Think about a baby. What are the first sounds they make? Baba. Dada. Gaga. These aren't random. They are the simplest sounds the human vocal tract can produce. You have a consonant, which involves closing off the air for a moment, and a vowel, which is just an open, resonant sound. Let's break that down. The easiest consonants are the ones you make at the front of your mouth. You just press your lips together and release. That gives you p and b, or you can do it with your lips and let the air come out your nose. That gives you These are called bilabials. The other easy spot is right behind your teeth. You tap your tongue there. That gives you time and done. Or you let the air go out your nose, which gives you. These are called alveolars, and the easiest vowels are the ones at the extremes of that open space in your throat. An open jaw gives you ah. A high front tongue gives you e. A high back tongue with rounded lips gives you oo. Almost every single language in the world, out of the thousands that exist today, has these sounds P, T, K, M, N, and A, I, U. Because they are the most basic, they are the primary colors of sound. So the first words were almost certainly built from these simple blocks. They were probably simple syllables, a consonant followed by a vowel, like ma, pa, ti, ko. This is where the baby talk connection gets really interesting. Why do so many languages have words for mother and father that sound like mama and papa or dada? The common explanation is that it's not, because there is some ancient universal word for mother. It's because a ma is one of the first easiest sounds a baby can make, often while nursing. The mother hears the sound, ma ma ma, and she decides the baby is talking to her. She attaches the meaning to the sound. The word isn't invented by an adult and taught to the baby. The word is invented by the baby, and the meaning is assigned by the adult. It's a beautiful feedback loop, so the very first words probably sounded like this. Simple, repeated syllables. Ma, po, ta. What did they mean? They would have meant something immediate and important. They wouldn't have been for talking about the weather or philosophy. They were for survival. Maybe a sound like eat meant danger, or snake. It was probably a sharp, high-pitched sound, because those sounds travel well and grab attention. Maybe a sound like meant this is good to eat. A low, pleasant sound. It's a word like go or there. Might have been a short, sharp sound like ka or ta, often paired with a pointing gesture. A word for me or I might have been a simple grunt, just a sound to draw attention to oneself. The first words were likely tools. They were like a verbal Swiss Army knife. A single sound could mean many things depending on the context. Ka, shouted loudly, could mean look out. Ka, said with a rising intonation, could mean what's that. Ka, said while pointing, could mean that one. The tone of voice, the body language, the situation, all of this was part of the meaning. The word itself was just one piece of the puzzle. There's another interesting possibility. Some languages in southern Africa, like the Khoisan languages, use click consonants. These are sounds made by creating a vacuum in the mouth and releasing it with a sharp pop. And linguists have wondered if these clicks might be incredibly ancient. Clicks are just sounds, like any other. but they are produced in a different way. Some argue that because they don't require as much airflow from the lungs, they could have been integrated into a communication system that was still heavily based on gesture and physical effort. Maybe you could make a click sound while you were out of breath from running. It's a controversial idea, and many linguists think clicks are a more recent innovation. But it's a fascinating thought that the first words might not have sounded like anything we are used to, but more like a series of pops and clicks. For a long time, our ancestors probably existed in a state of what linguists call proto-language. This isn't full language yet, it's a stage with words, but no real grammar. Think of how a toddler speaks. Cookie mommy, go car. You understand the meaning, but there are no connecting words, no tenses, no complex sentence structure. You have nouns and verbs, but you just string them together. This kind of proto-language could have been spoken by species like Homo erectus and Neanderthals. It would have been incredibly useful. You could say man hunt mammoth, woman find berries, water that way. This is a huge leap over no language at all. It allows for planning. It allows for sharing knowledge. You can tell someone about something that isn't right in front of them. You can warn them about a danger you saw yesterday. This is the beginning of thinking about things that aren't here and now. The final step, the one that turned proto-language into the full, complex language we have today, was the invention of grammar, or syntax. This is the set of rules that lets us combine words in specific, meaningful ways. It's what makes dog bites man different from man bites dog. The words are the same, but the order changes everything. This leap seems to be linked to our own species, Homo sapiens. It might have been the secret to our success. It happened somewhere between 200,000 and 50,000 years ago. This is when we see a massive explosion of culture in the archaeological record. We see complex tools, art, burials, long-distance trade. Many people think this great leap forward was powered by the arrival of fully modern grammatical language. With grammar, you can express incredibly complex thoughts. You can embed ideas inside other ideas. This is called recursion. You can say, I think that you know that she saw the lion that was hiding in the grass near the river. A sentence like that is impossible in proto-language. It requires a system of rules for organizing phrases. Recursion might be the key ingredient that makes human language unique. It lets us tell stories, make laws, build religions, and do science. So, what did these first grammatical words sound like? They were probably still built from those same simple sounds P, T, K, M, N, A, I, U. But now they were being combined in new ways. Maybe suffixes were added, maybe the word for hunt became hunted by adding a sound at the end. Maybe the word for man changed slightly to mean mans. Small changes in sound can now signal big changes in meaning. So let's try to paint a final picture. Imagine a small group of early Homo sapiens in Africa, maybe 100,000 years ago. They look like us. Their brains and throats are built like ours. What do their words sound like? They are probably short, mostly one or two syllables. CV consonant vowel structure is very common. Ba, do, ki. The sounds themselves are the ones that are common across the world today. The inventory is small, maybe a dozen consonants and 3 to 5 vowels. None of the tricky sounds like the ooth and is or the rolled R of Spanish. Those came later. Let's imagine a word for water. Maybe it was something like aqua. This is a famous reconstructed word from what linguists call Proto-Indo-European, a much later language. But the sounds are basic. Plausible. It might have started by imitating the sound of drinking or glugging. A word for stone might be tack. A short, hard sound for a hard object. A word for cut or sharp might have a high front vowel, like C, because we associate those sounds with small, sharp things. A word for big or round might have a back vowel, like bow or goo. This is called sound symbolism, and it's a real phenomenon in modern languages. Some sounds just feel like they fit certain concepts. Their conversations would have been about things that mattered. Where the animals are, which plants are poison, who is angry with whom. Kitana. The melody of their speech would have been important too. Rising pitch for a question. A sharp fall for a command. A soft, rhythmic tone for comforting a child. This musicality of language is incredibly ancient. It might be even older than the words themselves. The first step towards language might have been shared rhythms and melodies, a kind of simple song that held the group together. So, when we ask what the first word sounded like, we are asking two things. What were the raw sounds, and what was the meaning and feeling behind them? The raw sounds were likely simple, built from the most basic consonants and vowels that our newly configured throats and mouths could make. They were probably syllables like ma, pa, ti, and ko, but the feeling behind them was everything. The first time one of our ancestors made a sound, and another one understood an idea, not just an emotion like fear or anger, but a specific idea like that rock is sharp or bring the spear, it was the most important moment in human history. It was the birth of a shared mind. The first word didn't sound like much, it was probably a grunt, a syllable, a simple noise. But it was a sound that built a bridge between two separate brains. It was the sound of us starting to become what we are now. And while the sound itself is gone, that bridge is still here. We use it every day. We are using it right now.